Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Borderline Podcast with me, your host, Andrew Willox. And tonight, guys, we're heading back across to America, to Chicago, Illinois, where we're going to be joined by Gabby Wnek, a mental health therapist who's on to tell her own story of struggling with burnout, how that affected her, the neuroplastic pain that created, and how she now coaches others and advocates mental health, anxiety, and general awareness so we can all get on with our lives a little bit better. Now, guys, I know a lot of you are going to be related to what we talk about in this episode, and as ever, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Gabby, what she does, all of her information is going to be in the episode description below. If you are watching on YouTube, guys, I'd love it if you drop me a like and subscribe. It really helps me get onto the algorithm. Without any further ado, guys, Gabby Wnek, enjoy. Oh, good evening, Gabby Wnek, and welcome to the Borderline Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this evening. We're back, guys, across to Chicago, Illinois, one of my favorite states in America. Gabby Wnek, mental health therapist, life coach who specializes in fatigue, burnout, and anxiety. Thank you so much for coming on and giving me a bit of your time. Could you, for the listeners and audience, just give a little bit of information of who you are and what you do and why you're coming onto the podcast this evening?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the U.S., in Illinois specifically, and I transitioned into coaching myself because of my own burnout story. And I, at one point, was seeing 25 to 30 clients a week in mental health in private practice here. And I mean, I looked at a regular client that I was seeing every week, and I looked at the client and I went, I don't care what you're saying right now. You can just, I don't want to be here. You can leave. I don't see the point in this. And I, in that moment, went, what? This is not okay. You cannot be in the room. This is borderline dangerous if I'm kind of apathetic towards a client. And that was really kind of my wake-up call of I am beyond burnt out and this is an issue. This is not something that I can take a vacation and be okay. This is a bigger thing that I need to take care of. And I was also dealing with a lot of chronic pain as well during this time. And I remember after that period, I pretty much was taking Klonopin every single night because the pain was so bad. And so I kind of got into the cycle of Klonopin, that's the only thing that helped me sleep. I was coming home with 9, 10 out of 10 level pain. And this cycle went on for months. I kind of became a zombie, to be honest, because the medication it kind of not knocked me out, but I mean, it made me not who I am, right? And I just got to a point where I was like, Gabby, you cannot keep sacrificing your own physical and mental health for a job. As much as I want to help people, there's got to be a better way than this. And it's so funny because the coach I was working at the time, she told me, she's like, Gabby, I knew you were going to quit your job the moment we started working together. And I was like, why did you say anything? She goes, you weren't ready to hear it. And I went, okay, that makes sense. So
thank you for that. Thank you so much. Something that I just picked up straight away there, and like I told you before we started recording, was I've got to find this interview and episode incredibly relatable. Why do you think it is, as humans, we exceed the point of fatigue and go into burnout? And why do we not recognize that as an issue sooner, is what I'm trying to ask, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things of why this happens. I think a lot of it, at least for me, was because I was an overachiever and a perfectionist.
Right, okay.
Those for me are trauma responses. They are kind of what I've built through the years. I remember being in college and crying when I got my first B in a child development class. I bawled my eyes out when I got a 20 in America. It's the ACT. It's a test that you take to get into college. It's no, it's a 20 out of 36 I got. And so I was like, I'm never getting into college. I got into college. I had great grades. And so I think a lot of this is these kind of trauma responses that we build over time of I need to be perfect. I need to achieve all of these things in order to be good enough, right? I think that's a big part of this too, is if I don't do all of this, then I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of this amazing job, of money, of whatever the thing is. And I think the other part of this is, especially here in the US, like it's just this fast-paced society that we've grew up in. Like you have to excel and you have to exceed and you have to do all of these things. And then we do the things, and then like you said, we go beyond burnout or fatigue and burnout, and then we're feeling absolutely terrible in our bodies.
Yeah, let's say it's not even exhaustion at that point. It's like we're going to cover it's past the stage of exhaustion that you don't even recognize it, because like you said, you just kind of cruise on autopilot mode for what can be or feel like forever, and that you then, or I don't anyway, recognize the symptoms that come with that and then responding to them symptoms. So could we just go back there? You were obviously, I'm going to assume, joining the two together, being a perfectionist and then seeing up to 25 to 30 clients a week. I'm assuming that goes hand in hand together with your hard work ethic. So could you just talk to us, about your burnout experience and the symptoms that you encountered, the pain and what it did for you as your life?
Yeah, it was really just total exhaustion. Like it was exhaustion. It was, like I said, that apathy, this I don't care, which was so unlike me, because going into the helping profession, that's what I wanted to do, is to help people and help people feel better, give them the tools to feel better. And so I was also at that time kind of chasing my company's bonus. And so with the bonus, you had to make a certain amount of money through insurance, and then you got 5% of that. And so I realized it just wasn't worth it. Once I got it, I was like, this is not worth my time, energy, me feeling absolutely terrible for this money. And so that was a big part of that burnout as well. And again, it was just this complete exhaustion. I mean, I went into freeze mode, right? So if we talk about the nervous system, we go into kind of fight or flight, which is your stress response. And with burnout, it's a complete stress response for a very long time. So you kind of go into freeze or into shutdown, right? So I was beyond autopilot. I was just kind of doing my job barely, and then coming home and, like I said, taking that Klonopin every single day, because I was taking in so much of clients' trauma and I was neglecting myself. I think that's the biggest part of burnout, is that you don't take care of yourself. You don't take the time to breathe, to go outside, to take a walk, to move your body, to sleep, to eat well. And I wasn't doing that, right? I barely had time to eat in between clients. I didn't breathe or take care of myself because I was back to back all day, every day. And so I realized that I was really neglecting myself and my needs. And so that was a big part of like, ooh, okay, how do I come back to myself? Because I really wasn't doing that for myself for a very long time.
Yeah, something that you mentioned there that just resonated completely with me was that you really don't take care of yourself. I know from firsthand that this is going to be a horrifically ironic way to start early in this episode, but I'm going on the night shift tomorrow night. I was on day shift yesterday. My sleep patterns all over the place, but my focus is on podcasts because it's what I enjoy doing in my spare time. But it is coming at a cost to me. So that fine balance and recognizing it is so important at times. Or I certainly find. An appetite, as well, is something that I seem to struggle quite immensely with. Is that it's not that I don't get hungry, I just forget to eat, and then forgetting to eat seems to become the norm. Or it's not that you forget to eat; you kind of know that you should eat. You think, I've not ate since lunchtime. I was hungry before, but I'm not actually hungry now. So can I get away with not feeling hungry and before I go to sleep? That's my mindset anyway. It's not a healthy mindset. Is what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you're in that kind of fight, flight, freeze, when your nervous system is activated, your appetite is suppressed, because the last thing that you need to do is digest food when you're stressed, when you're in that stress response, right? It's just survival. It's like, what can we do? Our body's like, what can we do to make us survive the next moment or the next day? And it takes resources away from our digestive system, because we don't need to do that necessarily when we're stressed. Even though, yes, we need to eat, of course. But when we're busy, sometimes we don't necessarily, that's not our go-to is to eat, right? We can kind of just go a long time without eating, which isn't great either because we need fuel for our body.
Yeah, that's it. I always say good food equals good mood. Without it, you're going to be pretty lost. It
Exactly.
is nutrition is vital with mental
It's
health,
so
or
important.
certainly I find out. So could you just tell me, obviously, with the work that you do now as kind of a life coach specializing in burnout, what would be for anybody listening that has maybe not actually heard the term burnout,
Mm,
or don't quite understand its meaning, because it isn't just I'm tired, because that's the stigma that I would say
yeah,
attaches with it, is everybody gets tired.
right.
It's not like that. Would you be able to go over, some of the common symptoms that you tend
Yeah.
to see with people suffering with burnout?
Yeah. So burnout is, like I said, it's this long, it's a state of stress, but it's a prolonged state of stress. Because when we're in fight or flight, we should be in fight or flight for about 20 to 30 minutes. And what happens with burnout is that that state gets prolonged for a significant period of time. And so then what happens is that we get feelings of physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. We feel detached from our life, from our jobs, right? A lot of people think that burnout is just job related. It's not. That's kind of what I teach is you can feel burnt out in your relationships, in your in family relationships, in your within your friendships. You can feel with parenting, finances, like there's a lot of different areas of life that we can feel burnt out in. Our job is the most common. Some of the other symptoms is kind of feeling cynical, difficulty engaging in activities, sometimes hopelessness, helplessness, anger, frustration, just high levels of stress and anxiety, feeling like you kind of can't hold it together. You feel overwhelmed. Difficulty sleeping is a big one with burnout. And just, again, that compassion fatigue of just, wanting to help, but not having the capacity or the energy to.
Yeah, totally with you there. Like I say, we'll speak about it in a bit, but obviously, the lack of sleep and struggling to sleep. But something that you mentioned there, obviously, yeah, jobs. A lot of people just assume, you're working too hard, you're always at work, but dealing with the stresses of just normal life and reality at times, people find that hard to deal with, and that's why
Yeah.
it's such a underlying, or I find it such an underlying condition, and why it's such a bad problem just now, is because people just aren't quite aware of how powerful it can really be.
Yes.
Um, just to touch on the insomnia, and obviously I spoke to you before we started recording, saying that's probably, if I was to recognize any burnout in myself, insomnia is the one
Mhm.
that really impacts me the most.
Yeah.
Would you? It's often almost like a two-way street, I think, with insomnia and burnout, and the almost they kind of encourage each other to take its form, its
Mhm.
manifest. Could you just kind of
Right.
explain why that is?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's when we're in this fight or flight state or even freeze, really most we get affected with a lot of different symptoms, and all of our systems get so with burnout and anxiety. I think with insomnia what happens is that our systems get affected, and part of that is sleep. And so what happens is I actually don't I'm not a huge expert in insomnia, but I
Yeah,
know
that
I've
looks
had
cool.
issues with insomnia as well. And like I was saying before, the only thing that helped me was taking a Klonopin. And I think that's what people go to in terms of like trying to help themselves when they're burnt out, because again, our digestive system gets affected, our sleep gets affected, all of this, it all ties together. And like you said, when we are burnt out, we have difficulty sleeping. Like sometimes people can't sleep through the night. That was what I struggled with. I would wake up multiple times during the night, or you can't fall asleep because you're overtired. And so that's, I think, where the problem is because you're so tired. The brain's like, well, we're tired, but like we're not sleepy. And so then
Mhm.
you have a hard time falling asleep, right? Or, it's that over exhaustion that kind of isn't helpful for us when
Yeah,
we're burnt out.
yeah, absolutely. It like you say there, it's the stimulation of the brain almost that I get, that when I'm trying to fall asleep, it's just like, well, no, I'm awake now. And then
Exactly.
yeah, you wake up multiple times through the night. you're tired the next day, you get to bed the next night thinking, surely, and no, it's like Groundhog Day all over again.
Exactly.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It really is horrible. But obviously, another thing that I'd wanted to cover with you, and kind of going back to your own experience with it, is dealing with physical pain at the same time as burnout, and how obviously how the body and the nervous system reacts to that as well with dealing with so much stress. Would you be able to just talk to us a little bit about that with your own experience?
Yeah. So I actually developed chronic pelvic pain in college. And so I really didn't know what was going on with my body for the longest time. I got every scan, every MRI, every CT, every doctor diagnosed me with every diagnosis. And it turns out I structurally nothing was wrong. Every scan came out normal. And so there was nothing structurally wrong with my body. And then I learned that it's really mind-body pain. It's what we call neuroplastic pain. So it's the brain creating pain because it's under threat for a very long time. And there's a lot of repressed emotions that we're not feeling. And so what happens with chronic pain, specifically neuroplastic pain, is that we're not allowing ourselves to feel those really big emotions. And because we're under stress, under that fight or flight response for a very long time, eventually the body can't hold all of the stress and the threat response to the point where it creates pain, because the body thinks it's easier to have pain than it is to feel those really big emotions, the things that are very scary for us, the things that we don't want to deal with. And so obviously when you're burnt out and having pain, it's a not a great combination, obviously. But I think it's a combination that a lot of us get. And I even have like a personal example. So my colleague actually that would see 40 clients a week, which I told him multiple times that was a lot. And he came to me one day, he's like, Gabby, can I get your professional opinion? And I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, I'm starting to get back pain. And I went, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense, because if we don't have a way of releasing all of that energy, and especially being in the helping profession, eventually that's going to come out as pain. And so we really want to make sure that we're having specific practices to release, to feel our emotions, to teach our brain that we're okay, and to really regulate our nervous system.
That's so... I always get wowed every couple of podcast episodes because somebody that I've never spoke to will just say something so relatable, like a conversation that I've literally just had with somebody the other day. And It's kind of that ongoing conversations that I've been having with people. And yeah, we're on about the brain creating pain. It seems I don't know what it is. It just seems that, especially this year, I don't know if it's just because the more and more I'm reading about it, but it seems to be more and more people are actually waking up and understanding that yes, your brain can create this physical pain to prevent you feeling emotions, and it is repressing it.
Yep.
So much so I know somebody that was also had some pain, and they actually went to the physio about it, and the physio said, yeah. I think they're a bit more of a spiritual physio than a traditional.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, it's because you're holding on to this emotion, and if I push in there, you'll probably start crying. And they did.
Yep.
And it was just like, whoa, yeah. So yeah, it's sorry, I kind of lost my own little track there. I kind of got a little bit excited by that, but
I know it's because in our medical model, or at least I know in the US, like doctors don't know about mind-body pain, right? They're just going to give you pain medication. Oh, here, you're in pain. Here you go. Here's pain medication. And they're only taught to look at structural issues, when most often, unless, you have like a slipped disc, or even sometimes people who have slipped discs, they have, sometimes they have pain or they don't, right? A lot of doctors aren't taught to look at not look at structural abnormality. So look at stressors in our life, right? What are we repressing? Like they just don't know that information until you get a hold of someone who understands mind-body pain and can be like, okay, what's going on? What kind of trauma do you have? What do you have in your past? What are you not trying to feel? What are you suppressing? Exactly. That's a big one. And so just trying to find those practitioners that have that mindset and understand mind-body pain from a nervous system perspective, from a trauma perspective.
Yeah, like I say, it's really cool now that it seems that not the world, but selectively in the world, some people are opening up to the ideas that the brain is
Yeah,
slightly more powerful than we all originally anticipated.
exactly. Yeah, we can change a lot in our
um,
bodies. Yeah.
so obviously you'd hit your breaking point during a session with one of your clients.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what did you then do? What were the steps that you then took to then, to get to the root of the issue and to sort your life out?
Yeah. I mean, that day I went to my supervisor and I told her that I cannot keep seeing clients that day. And so they canceled all my clients. And I know specifically I took the rest of that day off. And I'm pretty sure I took a couple more days off. Luckily, this was around November, so we did have like Christmas break coming up, and I know it gets a little bit less hectic for us therapists during the Christmas season because clients are getting stressed with the holidays, they're going to see family and things like that. So therapy takes a little bit of a back burner during December. So that was helpful. But it really was just kind of working with my personal coach and really having her help me recognize the cycle that I was in. And that it came down to a specific moment that I just told myself, like, enough is enough. And it took me a while, honestly, to get to that point. If I would go back now, I would want to tell myself that, I should have gotten there sooner. But again, hindsight is 2020, right? Yeah. And so it did take me a while to really put myself first and to tell myself that it's not worth it anymore. I think I'm the type of person that will push until I can't anymore. And I think that is some of the perfectionism and overachieving. And I'm recovering from that, which is great. But I got to a point where I just couldn't anymore. And it was also a disservice to clients to not be at 100% or even not be at 80%, right? To not be enough where I can hold space for them. Because, as therapists, we need to be okay in order to help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so honest and admirable of you as well. Because I think a lot of people would possibly get rooted and stuck and possibly even embarrassed by the prospect that, they would have to completely, regress from their job or their career to really seek help. Like we said, we'll do everything in our powers to avoid these situations, even though we know that they probably are inevitable.
Yeah.
So on your journey and recovering, was there anything that you did specifically in terms of maybe spirituality or meditation, CBT, or did you use any kind of useful tools like that to help you along your journey?
Yeah, so I've been meditating for so many years now. That's been a kind of a staple in my life. Just really taking every morning before I look at my phone to just turn on a meditation and do some deep breathing. I think that is a really helpful way to center ourselves and to focus on our breath, which is one of the quickest ways to calm our nervous system down is breath work. Another is just I always put my hand on my chest because this activates the part of the brain as if you're getting a hug. And so just doing that and, taking a couple deep breaths, which is so helpful. And I think a lot of my work has been doing kind of like parts work. And so really connecting to that part of me that was protecting me and also the part that was overachieving and the perfectionist part of me. And to really start to have a conversation with that part of myself of what she's protecting me from. And then giving her reassurance. Because when I started my business, my coaching business, I think that was a big part of that part got scared that we were going to go back and see that many clients again. So I had to do a lot of reassurance kind of work and really talking to her and saying we're never going to do that again. And I know it was really scary and we neglected ourselves. And I'm so sorry that we did that. And I promise, hand on my heart promise that we are not going to ever let ourselves get to that point again because she was scared. I neglected myself to the point where I, again, was in this cycle of taking a medication that I never really wanted to be on, but it was the only thing that was helpful. And really coming home to myself and giving myself the healing and the space to do the healing that I wasn't giving myself because I was seeing that many clients a week.
Yeah. I totally get you. And yeah, I just know exactly what you're on about, and the way that you probably would have been feeling. And I'm not laughing at it. It's just again, it's just very odd
Mhm.
that you connect with somebody across the other side of the world and relate instantly.
Yeah.
You talk there about cycles, because that is something that, again, I find myself, kind of coming in and out of cycles. That must be, I'm assuming, the majority of people that struggle with burnout would be stuck in some sort of negative cycle. Is that right to assume?
What do you mean by cycle specifically?
Sorry, so I mean, maybe a cycle would have been, you know, I describe mine as almost like I have 25 good days out the month. I have bad
Mm,
5 days where I will kind of neglect myself. I'll feel
yeah.
tired. I'll know it's progressively getting worse. And then it will kind of get that day that I'm just silent. I'm agitated.
Mm,
I'm silent, and then I'm getting agitated. And, I just want to take myself away and be by myself for a little bit. Sorry, that's what I meant by cycle. Do
yeah.
you find that quite a common issue with a lot of clients, that people are stuck in these cycles, but they just can't quite step out of them because they don't really know how? And like you said, they're perhaps too scared to set the wrong foot off.
Right. Yeah, I think it depends on clients. Like for me, specifically with burnout, it kind of was a cycle, but it wasn't. It was this very like constant state of just exhaustion, right? And so now that I've kind of gotten out of it and feel better, I still do notice that I have those kind of cycles where like I'll find myself getting really, really irritable and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And so that's when I know I have to kind of pause and say, why am I feeling irritable? What's going on? Sometimes there's a technique called tapping, like I'll tap on it. So like, even though I feel irritable right now, I love and accept myself, right? Just getting into what's going on and what's coming up so that I can feel it, process it, and let it out.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Sometimes people are kind of in cycles with burnout, and people can also just kind of be in that very frozen state for a very long time with that exhaustion, and they just live in that, and I want to tell people that you don't have to live in it. There is a way out, because when you're in burnout or stress, anxiety, pain, you just don't think that there's a way out. Because of that like hopelessness, like, oh, this is just how my life is. And so I just want to tell people that there is a way out, and you don't have to feel that way. There's changes that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say there at the end again, like hopelessness. That is the sum of all evil of all this, isn't
Yeah,
it? Is the fact that you don't actually think there's going to be a way out. And
exactly.
what would you? Obviously, we've touched on the brain being the creator of some of the physical pain that we endure.
Yeah.
Kind of leading with that again. What would be real long term health risks, or potential illnesses or diseases that would be associated with the likes of burnout? Because it must be so, like I say, if it isn't treated, if it's left to run, what effect could that have later on in life if you weren't to recognize it sooner?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't say, but from
Sorry.
the experience that I have, it can lead to, like, for example, with me, it can lead to really severe pain, physical pain, right? I know I've had clients with burnout and anxiety. That's a big one. Anxiety, depression. I mean, you could even throw in like chronic fatigue syndrome and digestive issues, those kind of diagnoses in there as well. I mean, anything really that comes along with stress, like chronic stress, right? Migraines, headaches, any sort of like body pain, again, fatigue, insomnia, like we talked about before, right? Not being able to sleep, difficulty focusing, concentrating is a big one for people. Things like that can become chronic when we are not addressing the stress response and regulating the nervous system.
Yeah, thanks for that. And sorry, I'm a couple of these I'm not making them clear enough at the start with my leading questions, so I do apologize. um, so obviously, you have transformed your life and your journey, for want of a better word. so to say. So what would be, the biggest thing that you've learned throughout your journey, going back to the start to where you are now?
One of my favorite quotes by Courtney C. Stevens is, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." And so what I've learned is that in order to change it, you have to create change. And so you can continue feeling stuck. And trust me, I've been there, and it's not a great place and it's not fun. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, if you do specific steps to regulate your nervous system and change things in your life, change is possible. Like, it can happen. Does it take time? Yeah. Does it take a lot of hard work? Absolutely. And at least for me, all of this work was worth it, even though you feel really crappy through it, because it's not fun. No one wants to go through burnout, anxiety, pain, stress. And things always change, right? Like, our nervous system is kind of like a wave. We get activated and things go up, and then things go down and we deactivate and our nervous system kind of calms down. And so same thing with emotions and feelings, like, we feel things and they're really intense and then they go down, right? Like, that's just kind of how it all works. And so it might feel really, really terrible, and things are always shifting and always changing. So you can change, and then things around us are always changing, and you can create change in your life.
Yeah. Well, let's say testament to that is yourself, going through such a hard journey. Just on that, and to talk a little bit more about yourself, did you think it was possible when you had that almost kind of breakdown during a session where you kind of lost that aspect of empathy towards a client?
Yeah.
In that time and in that moment, did you think it was kind of possible to, we talked on hopelessness, did you think it was possible that you would be doing this just now, given how exhausted that you were?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, there was a really big part of me that didn't think it was possible. Mm-hmm. Because when you're kind of in the eye of the storm, it doesn't feel possible.
Yeah.
And there was that little part of me that has overcome so much. And I think there was that like little fighter in me that was like, you can do this. Again, that part was really, really small compared to the part that was like, this isn't possible. Like, either you're going to live the rest of your life like this. I mean, that was really my only option at that point, until I had support through my coaches to tell me, like, there's a better way. You can do other things to create a life that you want. But in that moment, it didn't really feel very possible.
Yeah. No, I bet it would have been like incredibly hard to try and navigate your thought to turn into a positive thought process is what I'm trying to say there. So, I have to ask just on that, is just how fulfilling is your career now, having endured it and then being able to raise awareness and act and help people fight against it and prevent it and act on it. How rewardful is that for you?
I'm literally just getting the chills as you're asking the question, because when I found out about coaching, or when I saw coaching on the internet, I went, oh my gosh, like, there's a better way of doing this, right? Like, I don't have to see this many clients, and I can speak about something that I'm so passionate about because I went through it. I was like, oh my gosh, like, sign me up. I was so excited to be able to create a career that I can have actual work-life balance, right? Where I can create my own schedule. I can see however many clients my nervous system can handle, right? And just create a life where I can travel and do other things and just really create a bigger impact, right? Where I can do podcasts and workshops and write articles and just create change, because I never want people to get to the point where I was, because my burnout was intense and it was really, really difficult. And so if I can help people before they get to that point, before they get to like a 10 plus, like if I can help people at like a 5 or a 6, that's why I think I'm on this planet, is to help people. And so it's really cool that I found a different way of helping where I can still make a really big impact.
Yeah, that's honestly, you said you got chills at the start of that question. I got chills by the end of the way that you ended that question. That was inspiring.
Thank you.
I don't know if you know, the reason that I'm finding it so inspiring And the reason why the universe is crossing our paths today is because I had a horrific breakdown last year. I was off work for weeks, ended up incredibly suicidal, burnt out. It was rough. But like you said, there's before as well, there's that little bit of fighter in all of us.
Right.
And it's why I'm doing this now. And it's weird that you used the word that it feels like this is the reason that you're on this planet, because that's a phrase that I use exactly why me and you're podcasting right now. So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a little, it says there's always weird stuff like that happens on the podcast.
I love when stuff like this happens because it's this beautiful exchange of energy that we're doing
Yeah.
right now. And like you said, I think the universe had us cross paths for a reason. And I love when things like this happen. It just makes me like giddy and happy inside.
Yeah, it's flawless. It's flawless.
Yeah.
So what type of coaching could we talk about your coaching for a little bit, and what
Yeah.
you can offer people? Yeah. And could I just ask, just straight off the mark, what type of coaching, obviously with burnout and anxiety, do you offer to your clients?
Yeah. So I offer a 3-month program for my clients to really help them understand what burnout is, but also help them realize where in their life they're feeling burnt out in. So really helping them bring awareness, and then helping clients to create change, right? For some clients, it's quitting their job. For some clients, it's creating boundaries in their job. For some clients, there's so many different things that we can do in terms of burnout, of how to change and create a life where clients want to be in. And then, after we do that kind of fundamental work, then it's really about helping clients regulate their nervous system, right? Because that's the foundation of all of this. If we have a regulated nervous system, we feel better. And so giving clients their kind of own, what I call their own formula of different tools, like what works for them, because what works for me isn't going to be what works for you or any other person, right? And so helping kind of clients create this customized formula of skills that they can use really for the rest of their lives. And then, helping clients with that, the parts work, the parts of us that are perfectionists, overachievers, people pleasers, because that tends to be in this work. And then helping clients create compassion towards themselves. That was a big part of my journey. Self-compassion, to realize that all of these parts are just trying to protect us. That our nervous system is trying to protect us because it's just wanting us to survive. And so creating a safe space for ourselves that has a lot of compassion in it, because we're very hard on ourselves, unfortunately, and we beat ourselves up, and that never helps us with burnout, stress, or anxiety.
Yeah, it's really is the last thing that you want to. It's definitely not the cherry that you want to stick on the top of that cake.
Exactly.
You put any stress factors in there. So, do you have a website, or are you planning a website that anybody listening could just click into to
Yes.
obviously check yourself out?
I have my my website. It's GabbyWnekCoaching.com, and on the homepage, people can subscribe right there, and they'll get a freebie from me. So it's just kind of a guide to help people start with burnout and anxiety. And then if it's a good fit, then they can book a consultation call with me and see if working together would be a good fit.
Yeah, well, I bet we'd say the problem that, and I'll just be honest, the problem that it's not that it's going to sound a bit cheap or wrong. It's just that the problem that I get when I talk to, maybe my GP or somebody about the way I've been feeling, whether that be depression or anxiety, is that I find that hard relation, because the words that I'm saying, they mean something slightly different to the way that they're being interpreted. But when you're talking to somebody that has walked in them shoes, and
Yes.
they've been on that path, it's like the words don't have to make sense sometimes, because you just know exactly what that person's feeling in that second.
Right.
So to have that, and to be so diverse and including, the individuality aspect to coaching and courses, will truly, I hope, benefit a lot of people, Gabby. I really do genuinely believe that, because you seem like such a genuine person.
Thank you. Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because the coach that I'm working with right now, like, she's gone through chronic pelvic pain, so she knows exactly what it's like, and she's helped me so much on my journey. Like, every coach that I've had, it's because they went through it themselves. right? And so you're so right. It's so valuable to have someone who really understands it because they've been through it. And like you said, sometimes there doesn't even have to be words. Like they just understand. And I think that piece is so valuable to have when you're working with someone versus someone who will kind of understand, but not fully because they've never gone through it.
Yeah, totally. It's like that. Like I try and say things that I'm thankful about poor mental health sometimes. I know that sounds almost counterintuitive, but it's exactly as we say there again. I'm thankful that sometimes we can have these moments with people that you're relating to, that you don't have to say the words, or you get them little chills when somebody says something, that's slightly more emotive to you than it would be to anybody else. And there is a beautiful aspect to mental health, and that's why I think it's such a brilliant conversation. Why do you think it's so important that we have to keep on talking about these subjects and these taboos and these stigmas because there will be so many people standing in the shadows that, like we said before earlier in the episode, are slightly embarrassed. Why do you think it's so important to continue on with this narrative?
Because people suffer in silence all the time. Because even though we've done such good work with mental health and talking about it more, we need to talk about it more so that people feel comfortable with seeking help. Because I think for the longest time, especially when I worked with clients, is that like, I always told clients, like, it is such a huge strength that you're seeking help because we are social beings. We cannot do this by ourselves. We need support. That we are relational beings, right? We have to be in relation with other people. And it's just so important to talk about mental health so that people understand that they're not alone. Because when we're suffering a lot and when we're in it, we think we're the only people that are going through it. And let me be the first to tell you, with burnout, with pain, with anxiety, you are not the only one. There are so many people. And I think the more that we connect to each other, I think that's a huge strength as humans.
Yeah, that's so well. Just so well put. You've been such an inspiring guest. Honestly, I've really, really, really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad that the rain's held off as well, may I add.
Yes.
It's finally done it. I know in Scotland it actually hasn't rained for once when it was supposed to. So, that could be a world's first that you've seen there as well, Gabby. You never know.
The universe has our back because it's not raining. I love that.
I would like to thank you, honestly, for coming on once more to the Borderline podcast tonight. I've absolutely loved this discussion. This has been one of my favorites in a while because you're such a genuine person. You genuinely want to help people.
Yeah.
I'm just getting such a vibe off you that, we're the same kind of minded people. And again, that relation to, without actually saying too many words, I'm sure you understand.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience tonight, Gabby, or finish off with from yourself?
I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It's so great to find, like you said, like-minded people that you just connect with, even though you're across the pond, right? And such a far distance away. I just, again, want to remind people that there is hope and things can change and there is support for anyone.
Thank you so much. And it has honestly been my absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast this evening. As soon as this is going to be done, I'll probably send you an invite to come back on because, you're welcome back anytime. You're welcome back anytime. Guys, this has been an absolute thrill. It's been a pleasure to do this one for you. I'm sure there's going to be so many people listening to this that will be able to relate to this.
Yes.
Everything that we'll cover in this is going to be in the episode description. If you want to get in touch with Gabby, go across to her website. It'll be in the link description. As with any social medias, their Instagram handle, of course, will be on there. Go and check it out and, get onto the mental health boat because, we're kind of cruising just now with the kind of feel-good feeling that's going through this one anyway. So, and of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please do drop a like and subscribe. It really helps to get me on the algorithm. So conversations like this can be heard from more and more people and we can hit more and more audiences and really help change the world. Gabby, once more, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure and I'm pretty sure we'll have you on again very soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so great.
You're more than welcome. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one. From Gabby Wnek across in Chicago, Illinois, to Andrew Willox here in sunny Scotland, this has been the Borderline Podcast. Good night.